Hello, I am Pam Erika from Living Joyfully, and today I'm joined by my co-hosts Anna Brown and Erika Ellis. Welcome to you both.
Hello.
Hello. So today we are going to talk about navigating disagreements with our partner because that's something that happens. We are different people after all, right? But before we dive in, we would like to invite you to join us in the Living Joyfully Network. There is so much value in doing that deep personal work that the unschooling journey asks of us in community. Because while everyone's journey is definitely unique, we all face similar obstacles and challenges. And I think that's where the power of community shines because you're no longer alone. You are part of a group of like minded individuals who are on a similar journey who acknowledge and encourage you as you walk alongside each other. You can learn from their experiences, draw inspiration from their aha moments, gain insights from the unique and creative ways they navigate their family's day to day needs and disagreements with their partner. It's not just about getting answers to your questions, it's about exchanging ideas, broadening perspectives, and just feeling part of something bigger. One of our members, Carolyn, shared, "For me, the Living Joyfully Network is truly a global community of strangers who become friends, a group of people who are living intentionally, hearing each other, holding space for one another, supporting one another, lifting each other up, and inspiring one another." And I just got goosebumps because that's how I feel when
I
I step into the
know.
network every day. So to learn more and join us, just follow the link in the show notes or go to livingjoyfullyshop.com and click on community in the menu. And now, Anna, would you like to get us started?
I would. I feel like learning how to navigate disagreements is so important for any relationship, because there's going to be times when we don't see eye to eye, and finding ways to express our needs and to really hear the other person is critical to finding mutually agreeable solutions and just living joyfully together. Not surprisingly, I'm going to start with understanding people are different. We really see the world differently. We prioritize different things. We have different histories and triggers that show up in different places in our lives. And so when we start there, I think it allows us to not bring defensiveness into the equation when there's a disagreement. We can be curious, like, okay, wow, they're seeing this really differently than I am. What's going on? I want to understand versus they're seeing this differently. There's something wrong with me, or I've done something wrong, or this is, then we're making it about us. And so I think that piece of really understanding differences and getting excited and curious about it is a big, big, important kind of first step in this idea of navigating these disagreements. Because remember, this is somebody that you love. This is a partner, someone you've chosen to spend your life with. And I mean, I want to understand my partner. I want him to feel seen and heard. And you both want to feel comfortable with the decisions you're making as a family because it just feels better. It just feels better when you can get to that place of understanding each other. And the tools that we talk about so often come into play, and honestly, I'm not even sure if we can cover them all. So maybe we'll just pick a few like really important ones. And the first one that really comes to mind for me when we have a disagreement is validation, because that's our chance to really hear and to validate what your partner is telling you. And remember, you do not have to agree with somebody to validate their experience. And you don't have to change your mind to find a solution, because I think that's where we dig in. No, I've been researching unschooling for years and they don't know anything. And I'm just going to dig my heels in. But it's like, oh, but we're missing that nuance of what's happening for that other person when we get defensive about it, when we dig our heels in. We don't have to change our mind to really hear this is feeling hard for you. This isn't making sense for you. You're feeling worried or nervous about this. Validation helps move from kind of that surface level statement to what the underlying needs are. And what I found is that so often in that space of underlying needs, there's common ground. We love our kids. We want our kids to feel good and to have a good life. Like we can find that common ground. And from there, then we're able to move towards, okay, and how do we get to that? How do we navigate all of those pieces? And I think remembering that their concerns are a reflection of what's happening for them. It's not a commentary or a criticism of you. I think that's important because it may be reflecting a little bit of disconnection. Maybe your partner happens to work outside of the home and maybe doesn't have the connection that you have. And so those concerns are a reflection of that. It's not a commentary about you. It really is just, oh, wow, they don't see these pieces. I want them to feel safe and comfortable. And so I think just that little bit of shifting your mindset around it and moving to that place of listening and validating really can help the energy of those conversations come down, and it becomes this collaboration.
Yeah. That the defensiveness is like, that's like the enemy of validation. That's the thing that just makes it so hard in that moment. So right, like noticing that defensiveness in myself as kind of like a red flag of like, okay, this is something where something is triggering me about what they're saying. How can I move through that so that I can validate? And right, like I feel like what people bump up against with validation is that, but I know that this is better. I have to try to convince the other person. I have to try to convince my partner, because otherwise, like, it's all going to go off the rails. Like, I know that this is important and I need to convince. And so that kind of go-to of like, let me convince. I just need to figure out the right thing to say to convince and, defending my way and convincing them. That's like, it's just the opposite of validating. But right, we need to remember that validation isn't changing our mind. It's not giving up. It's not like now everything's going to just be how they want it to be. It really is just about lowering the intensity of the conversation, having our partner feel understood and heard, and really being honest about our own vulnerable concerns and worries too. Because I think a lot of times, if my husband has a concern about bedtime or whatever and tells me about it, I probably have concerns too, but my reaction is going to be to defend and say, we're doing this right and I know the way and everything. But really, like, if we can both come at it as, okay, I have these concerns too, you have these concerns, this is real, and we are having these fears come up, and it's safe to talk about it. It's safe to acknowledge, okay, you are having fears come up, and just really hearing and validating means reflecting back what they're saying and showing that you heard what they said and what they're feeling. And so I think it's about kind of understanding ourselves better, seeing what is a trigger and what's causing defensiveness in ourselves, and then also knowing that the same thing is happening for them. They are having their own triggers and having their own things that are being brought up from whatever their past is. And so I don't know. I think just being aware that all of that is happening underneath helps me come to it without that defensiveness. And it's like, okay, we're just two different people. We have a lot of history, of our own that's coming into this. And can we just kind of take a moment to listen to each other?
Yeah, because I do feel like if we don't, or in my experience, when I was not able to get to that validation piece where I just got stuck in that defensive place, we really were just batting it back and forth, trying to find the right words to convince the other person that we were right. And it was just, however long we managed to stay at it, us just trying to say the exact same thing in a bit of different words, right? Trying to convince the other one why our way of looking at the thing was better or more right or whatever, and theirs was wrong. We were stuck in that. Somebody's right, somebody's wrong, somebody has to give in, somebody has to win, somebody has to lose, like that whole dynamic. But yes, when my understanding of and ability to engage in validation shifted hugely was when I realized or learned from Anna and like the world at that time that I didn't have to agree with what they were saying to be able to validate their experience. Like that was like, oh, that was a game changer for me because it helped me to recognize the importance and the value of seeing situations and circumstances through their eyes as well as my own, like understanding myself to a level and triggers, like those are always a big piece of it too. You're recognizing triggers are our own and they're from our past experiences and they are our truth, right? But coming to recognize that their perspective is as valid to them as mine is to me, releasing that whole right, wrong dynamic judgment piece is hard because the way we see things is absolutely our truth, right? But that was really the way, like when the other person, and think about ourselves, when we feel seen and heard, it's like, oh, like I can put down the shield, I can put down the defensiveness. It's like, okay, you hear me, you see my energy in reaction to whatever has come up. Um, and now I just felt like I could be so much more open. And I find that when the other person feels seen and heard, like that's when we can move out of discussions about this moment. Like we're not stuck here and actually start to meet each other where we are. So like Anna, that's what was going through my mind, Anna, when you were talking about, oh yeah, you're out of the house, a good chunk of the day. You don't see X, Y, and Z. So it's not me trying to convince them and bat them over the head. It's me meeting them with, oh, if I didn't know that, I would think that too. If I didn't see all these other little pieces, like I can meet them where they are. And then that's where our more fruitful conversations that actually make some progress will be. Like that's where we can, and where we can talk about ourselves as human beings, as in people are different. Oh, this is the way I saw the thing. This is the way you saw the thing. Again, not right, wrong, not judging, but understanding the different perspectives. And when we feel seen and heard, we can be so much more open to how things might unfold from there. Whether it's, this, we don't have to come up with an answer. I think that's the other thing in a disagreement. Maybe where we want to move forward is let's keep this in the back of our minds. And then we'll be like, maybe messaging each other over the next week or two because now that that's bubbling up for us, we're going to be paying a little bit more attention. We're going to be noticing the things in front of us that relate to whatever we're having a disagreement about, right? And then we can come to a more common place, like together, that incorporates all our pieces. And when the energy is down and we're not feeling that defensiveness, we can be more open to it. Doesn't have to be our solution. And it may end up being how we move forward weeks and months, is not the way either one of us first came to it, the disagreement, right? It's like a way, oh, this makes sense to me, this makes sense to you, and together we can walk down this path. But when you're stuck in that defensiveness stage, you're never going to be able to, very rarely going to be able to get to that like common path forward that works for both of you, right? And validation really is that first step to take the energy out of that defensiveness, I feel.
Right. And it does help, I think, move us from that black and white, right and wrong kind of, paradigm. And so, I think it's so critical. And this is all these pieces that we're going to talk about are related, but I'm just going to highlight it. It's assuming positive intent, which we talk about a lot as well. And, what I found that does for me is it gives me a little bit of a pause, like, okay, let me just turn my kind of thinking brain on versus my defensive, maybe more primal brain. It's like this person is I just want to assume positive intent. Like they're trying to figure something out. They're trying to understand something about our family, or they love their kids, or they love me. And it's interesting because I've had people say, how can it be positive intent if they're, grumping about this or whatever? And I was like, well, actually, still, like the next kind of step of assuming positive intent is they're doing the best they can in that moment. Like something is dysregulating to them and they are trying to figure out how to feel more regulated. Like they're trying to figure out what can I control or do that will make me feel better. And so when I can do that, I recognize, oh, that's it. I can have so much more compassion. So again, it's not about me. Like that's information about them and their state of mind and what's happening for them. And me actually coming in with that defensive energy ends up just doubling down. Like everything just kind of derails from there. And so when I can just come with that kind of assuming positive intent, compassionate space, it opens things up. And I think that validation is that first step, because it's like, okay, that when we can feel heard, we can, if we don't feel heard, let's say, you're going to get louder a lot of times. And so if we can feel heard, then a lot of times it can bring that energy down. And when I'm assuming positive intent, I think it's and for some people this is more of a trigger than others, but I definitely have a friend, if she feels we are not giving her a generous assumption, it is very hurtful, because she knows she's coming from a place with a big heart trying to solve something. And so if someone makes a judgment about her that she's not coming from that place, it's really hurtful and it derails. And this trust that we talked about, a few weeks ago, it's like, yes, it really derails that. So when we can come with someone assuming positive intent, they feel that energy. They feel that connection. They feel that, okay, they understand me and they're trying to understand me and we're trying to have a conversation and they want to help me get regulated and feel better and move through this upset. And so I think for me, assuming positive intent is just, it's a reminder. It slows me down. It connects me with the person I want to be, which is to show up in compassion for the people in my life. And so I think it's another one that I just wanted us to highlight today.
Yeah, it's a huge one for me and a challenging one for me. So what happens in my life is, maybe Josh will make a meal that has something that I said I don't like. And then rather than assume positive intent, which is that he's trying to make a good meal for everyone, I write a story of he doesn't care about me. He wants to serve things I don't like. I mean, this is, when I'm at my low points, this could be what happens. So assuming positive intent to me is it's not about me. I need to tell people what's going on for me. People can't read your mind. That part to me works right into assuming positive intent. So if I haven't shared that something's bothering me and someone does it, it's not because they're trying to hurt me. It's because they can't read my mind, Yeah. And so assuming positive intent is, it's a way to avoid getting defensive. And so then that's the path towards then being able to validate and have more productive conversations. And I used to kind of bristle at the idea of it's not about me, because I feel like I just want it to be about me. And why wouldn't it be about me? Like that kind of idea. Like, why wouldn't he know everything about what I like and what I need and be able to read my mind and be able to predict what would be good for me? And so, this is major work for me to do in relationship. And it just helps so much if I can think, okay, that's a different person, not inside of my mind, another person who's doing the absolute best that he can at all times. And, assuming that what he's doing is either trying to help himself feel better, to try to help the family, just, making the decisions that he thinks are the best in the moment. And so then I can open up communication rather than shutting down, assuming the worst, and getting really worried about everything in that way. So yeah, assuming positive intent is a big growth area for me. I also want to mention a funny validation story, which is that, I was talking to Anna one day and she was giving examples of how she had validated someone else. And I was like, Oh, I just feel so much better. Like me, like just hearing the words of validation of like, you have so much going on. This has been so hard, like just those things where it really feels like someone is seeing and hearing you. It helps so much to bring people's anxiety, energy, all of that down. So anyway, I thought it was really funny that you don't even really have to be directly validated to like just have that type of language just to feel so good.
Yeah, that type of energy, like being in
Yeah.
that energy really helps it ground. So like, so many things are weaving together. I think assuming positive intent, we can get caught up in thinking like, well, we're kind of we're looking for perfection kind of deal. Like I remember at my lower points, like just like watching to see what they would do. Like the whole reading your mind thing, right? Well, they should know me well enough, and I can just like count all the things that they, tick all the things they did wrong that they should know that I don't like that, or all those pieces. Like, oh my gosh, yes, just making that bit all about me, but not sharing the expectation that I said this once 3 months ago when we were out at a party, like some place where, like, where would this random piece of information about me go in their brain to stay there that now it would pop right back in that, of course. Anyway, that was interesting. Thanks for that little romp down memory lane. But the really important piece, I think, of assuming positive intent is something you mentioned, Anna, is like in this moment. They're doing their best in this moment. Because assuming positive intent doesn't mean like ignoring what actually happened and just assuming that it was meant, positively
Yeah.
and perfectly and lovingly. You meant to,
Yeah.
and like rewriting the story in my head. No, it's like it's what's happening in this moment, and that's giving us information. Maybe last week, when a very similar moment happened, they like reacted or responded beautifully, or their choice in that moment was felt perfect to me. And then why this week are they making a different choice that is, knocking me for a loop that I'm not happy with, etc. That doesn't mean like assuming positive intent doesn't mean ignoring those people, those moments, right? And like having that expectation that once they've managed to do it the right way, that makes me feel good, that so we don't have a disagreement, that from now on they'll be able to do that thing. Because it is in the moment. It is so important to recognize it's in the moment because maybe their capacity is down. Maybe other things are bothering them. Like that's why we talk about context so much. So when they're doing something differently than maybe before, that's causing us to get our back up, it could just be something completely
Yeah.
different, right? So I found being able to like assume that positive intent, even if their initial motivation in that moment wasn't particularly positive. Maybe,
Yeah.
they were trying to get a rise out of us or whatever, but that is so much about them and something else that's going on. I
Yeah.
don't need to take the bait, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
I can still assume positive intent, as in they're doing the best they can in this moment, so the question becomes more, what is different about this moment? Ooh, like it's like, is something up? Are you worried about something? That can be the direction that the conversation goes versus just the defensiveness and
Yeah.
why did you say that? Or why did you do that? Or
Yeah.
I don't like peppers, or whatever it is, like take the context. Like it's not faking it or telling ourselves some erroneous story when we assume positive intent, even if maybe that's not what they're bringing, because there's a reason for whatever they're bringing.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that because it's right. It's not, it's again, it's that not making it about us. It's bringing that compassion to the moment. And I think we can kind of turn it around because sometimes that's helpful for people. It's helpful for me to go, okay, I've been dysregulated and I've said some pretty yucky things to people that I love. And how different it is to be met with, hey, are you okay? Or do you need something versus don't you talk to me that way? Or why are you being like this? Or you're this terrible person, because I mean, we are trying to do the best we can. And when we're dysregulated and under-resourced and all of those things, it can come out in a harsh way. And so I don't know. I just want to be able to offer compassion. And again, especially with this person that we love and are sharing our life with, because it moves us through things faster. Like we get back to our connection point, which is where we both feel safer and more comfortable. And so it leads us there, which I love. And now if you're talking about a pattern of this that goes on for longer, then it's right. Looking at the context of that, what's happening, there's something else. But so often these are kind of isolated events when we get, upset. Okay, so the next one I want to talk about is no set outcome. And we talk about this a lot when we're really with the whole family, like when we're talking about how do we find solutions to things when we have people with these different needs. But I think it really comes into play here because if we're going into this disagreement thinking, okay, this has to be the solution for us, or we have failed, and they're thinking this has to be the solution or it's not okay, it's very hard to get anywhere with that. And this is again about getting to those underlying needs, because we can have this very disagreement about, bedtime or whatever it is here. If we get to the underlying needs, we find that wiggle room for solutions. Interestingly, I have found even if both parties aren't in agreement with this, it helps me not to come with an agenda, because even just that calms the energy a little bit. Like they don't feel like they have to defend their position as harshly. Like you said, Pam, like how many words can I say the same thing to defend my position, even if they're not bought into this concept, but we are talking about someone you love. So this is actually a conversation we can have like, hey, we're going to figure this out, right? I want to hear everything you're saying. And this is something we do with our kids too. Like, this is feeling hard right now. I don't know exactly how we're going to get through it, but let's just put all the options on the table, because the big piece here is there's no one right way. And so when we understand that, it's easier to let go of that kind of set outcome or this agenda that we're moving towards. And when we put it in the context of unschooling, I think it can be interesting because, especially if we have one partner that's like researching and diving in and listening to all the podcasts and doing all the things, you get excited, right? You're excited about all these pieces and you know how it's going to work and you know what the best unschooling way to be is. And you can imagine, if you step back for a minute, how disorienting that can be to a partner that is not aware of all of these things that are happening and maybe is just getting little bits or pieces. And it can actually feel super disconnecting because, sometimes it's people make dramatic changes as they're going down this path. And so the partner's like, okay, we were on the same page here and now suddenly something's changed. And so when we can let go of that one right way to say like, this is the piece that excites me. This is the piece that's really connecting for me that I see with our kids or that I see in our life. Then you're having a conversation versus a bulleted list of what we should do. And then they're giving a bulleted list of what we should do. That's the complete opposite. We're losing that kind of interplay and the connection that most often probably brought you together however many years ago. And so I think it's just really important to watch an agenda, watch thinking that there's a set outcome of convincing, because as you said, Pam, we kind of tunnel in on how do we convince, and we miss a lot of information about our partner, but also about the context of the situation and our individual lives. Because as you and I, all of us say so many times, like there's no one unschooling family. There's no list of unschooling rules. We did a whole podcast series that there's not, And so I think that piece can really help these disagreements, that especially if they're around some of these parenting pieces or unschooling pieces, can really just stop that charged energy, just really bring the energy down to, how do we solve this for our family? Let's figure out something that feels good to all of us.
Yeah. When you first come to new ideas, though, that excitement, it is really hard to not just want to convince everyone in the world. Like, come on, I just found the answer. Let's do it. It is challenging. And so to me, this no set outcome, it requires like a pause in my own mind and thinking, just to remind myself, there's not just one way. It's going to be okay, however it works out. And, like being open and curious, like that's it. But it is hard. Like I feel it being challenging in my mind because I will get really pumped up about an idea. I will want to convince, I will want to share how amazing it is. And if I don't get a response of like, oh, I see it immediately and it is amazing and let's do it, that it's like, that could be really hard to move through. And so it's internal work and almost like practices of calming myself to calm myself down to say, there's space for different ideas. There's not one right way. Even if we disagree, we can move through this, that if he has different ideas than me, that doesn't mean that my ideas are wrong, but it just means there's more communication needs to happen. So yeah, I value that no set outcomes, but find it challenging.
Yes, so very challenging. I think for me, part of the work when I'm moving through that just bubbled up while you were talking, Erica, like when it's that energy that we're feeling, like, this is so exciting, let's do this. Like I want you to see is to, talk to myself through like, okay, this isn't, this probably isn't like, not to negate myself at all isn't the only way to get that energy. Like what I want is that excitement and that energy and like that direction. But like to keep that at the forefront versus the one plan I came up with to get there, right? To recognize that there are like so many ways that plans, and that's the whole thing, not holding out that agenda, that set outcome, or like to me, it's that set path to get there, right? When I can be more open to the possibilities, again, like you're saying, it doesn't mean giving in or giving up or any of those like common ways to describe it. But what that does is help, and you talked about this earlier, Anna, is like just peeling back those layers to find and meet them where they are. Like, where is our common ground? Where is our common ground? Let's find that common ground first. And then from there, we can each like, oh, kind of feel like the next step and there how they feel that next step is. And then like from that common ground, we can so often take baby steps that make sense to both of us. It's like, okay, so I see that mountain over there, and that's the direction I want to go. But maybe we'll like take this little jog in the path for a little while and jog and jog. If we can stay like in that common ground and then the baby step and then see what comes from the baby step, like maybe then we're each learning and experiencing pieces. And then the next baby step makes sense. And the next baby step. And then, you can kind of look and say, oh, yeah, we're getting there. We took 3 steps and we're like a step closer. But they're feeling the same way. Even if their mountain's over here and yours is over here, we're taking baby steps together and coming to a place, and we're both understanding each other a little bit better and a little bit better. Because it doesn't mean that we have to come up with the path and the answer to this maybe huge, life-changing decision, choice, disagreement, whatever it is. We can take baby steps and look up, and baby steps and check in. And we may find that we were just using different words, and internally we were a lot closer than we imagined. But especially when you're stuck in that defensiveness, you kind of feel like you have to go to the opposite because you need more power. So I need to be like so opposite you to like lob that thing in there to knock you off balance and get you to come my way. But I really didn't need to hold to that so tightly.
Right.
This little bit. Oh yeah, no, I can do that little bit. I can do that little bit. Oh, you can do that little bit. Cool. Like to me, baby steps kind of became my mantra with my partner. It's like, okay, well, what's the next baby step that makes sense to both of us? And then see where we are.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I'm going to take your little metaphor a little further. So you're walking towards your mountain and they're walking towards their mountain. I love the baby steps. But I think what happens is, you make a new mountain in the middle, that's like your unique family. And then you really are walking towards the same place. It's not exactly what you thought, because maybe you were in this mindset of this is what unschooling looks like, or whatever the thing is, and this is what parenting looks like to them. But it's like, oh, but we found something that fits for our unique children, for our unique relationship. And that's really beautiful. Like that is just that process of slowing that down is so worth it, because this is our life. Like these are the people that we're spending our lives with. That is ultimately going to be what defines our life, is our relationships and how we're moving through all of these different pieces. So I really, really love that. So I think I really do feel like these kind of three things that we went over really give everybody a very big head start into like how you could change that dynamic with a discussion that's maybe feeling charged, or even if you're feeling attacked at first about something, you can see, okay, I can breathe through this. We can figure this piece out and bring that different energy to it. And so I don't know, do we want to do like run through a quick example, or what do you think?
Well, I had a couple parts of this that I don't think we've mentioned yet that I feel like, so one thing, and we could do an example of like something that comes up. So, I mean, the disagreements can feel huge, like something like a major difference in parenting style, or it could be something small, like the dining room table has a craft project on it. It's bothering the other person, like little things that can blow up, or big things that can blow up, like really heavy. But one thing that I feel like might be the biggest shift to make is to switch from saying you always or you did to iMessages. And Anna, you remind everyone about this all the time, but iMessages are so valuable in these relationships with our partners, because as soon as someone says, you left this stuff on the table, why do you always do that? It's like immediately the other person is like, defenses up, like immediately. You can't help it. If somebody says you something, it's going to raise those defenses. And so saying, I'm feeling so overwhelmed today, I really could use a clean dining room table to serve dinner, is so much like your partner can hear that, and it's not going to cause that same defensiveness as why do you always leave stuff on the table? Which, I mean, these are little things, but they can cause, days long arguments just, based on that kind of communication style.
Yes. That is huge. That is huge. I love that. And like that's such a lovely thing to bring to the whole process, right? Oh yeah, it is huge. And I love the distinction you made there between like the little everyday things, because when they go, like those can build and build into big explosive moments. And that's kind of where we fall into the you always kind of trap, because like we bumped into it today, and we bump into it 3 days from now, and we bump into it at the end of the week. It's like, oh, you always do XYZ, right? And that kind of explodes. But as we talk about a lot with the narration and the iMessages, then it's something about us. And then they can choose they don't immediately feel judged and the need to defend themselves. They can like, oh, okay, they're feeling this, and I wonder where that's coming from. Like they can do their own processing to recognize, because I always go back to context, but like the context for them, maybe they had a project out and then some emergency came up, and then they got really busy for a couple of days. So like 2 or 3 of our experiences of that are part of the bigger context of something that's going on for them, not I'm going to leave this on the table just to piss them off. Like so very rarely is the choice actually motivated by just to piss them off. Anybody else.
That's our assuming positive intent. They are not doing it.
See, it all ties together so beautifully. So, like, I love how these tools apply no matter the situation, like whether, the typical ones, the screens, food, bedtime, like those, the whole kind of parenting paradigm shift that comes with moving to unschooling and embracing unschooling to just the little everyday moments of the shoes at the front door and the stuff on the table and all the little pieces to be able to take these tools of, validation and assuming positive intent in the moment and not having a set outcome. Because maybe the outcome in that moment is let's have a picnic on the floor. Because I can't, like, I really need to finish this thing and I'll be able to do it tomorrow, but it would be amazing if we could just leave it here on the table for now. Like, I'm not giving in when I choose, "Oh, let's like have a picnic. Let's make the best of this moment." Because that can be fun too. So that we're not doing it begrudgingly. We're not doing it like with this energy of you owe me, that whole deal. We're just embracing something different. And it wasn't what our choice was at the beginning, but as we learn more, because we've gone through the process of having that little discussion, we can come up with something that seems fun for everybody too.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, I'm all about intentional language. And so I do think those I messages can help. And I think the piece again, this works even if you don't have somebody that understands and uses those same tools, because when they come at you with the you are message, like then we can go, okay, that's about their dysregulation. Like that's where their head is at this moment. They're feeling really upset about the table, or they're feeling really defensive that we're trying to take their project down, thinking we're in the right because we need a clean table. That's where, and it's like, oh, if we can use these tools to just assume positive intent. Wow, what they said at us was really intense. That's about them. Okay, how can we move forward with curiosity and with validation to maybe bring that energy down? Because then I think once you bring that energy down, then they're able to say, I just haven't had time to finish it. I have had so many things back to back. And then we get more context, then we get more understanding about why it's there. But again, as soon as we go to defense mode. So and I mean, again, ideally, we're talking about this as a family, how to use iMessages and how to really own our pieces of what's happening because of the things on the table, or because of, when dinner is, or because of what bedtime looks like, or any of those pieces. And so, yeah, I think just think of any example in your head and it's just walk through the same process, whether it's little or big. And you'll see that it can change the energy, and you'll learn so much more about your partner and your kids, and so much more about yourself, because you'll be articulating why something's important to you, and you're having a conversation that looks a little bit different than just making assumptions about it.
Yeah.
I gotta say, like, one thing that really bubbled up for me there is that understanding too of somebody else and like their triggers, like that can help us kind of
Yeah.
nip disagreements in the bud before they even bubble up, because we can understand the things that are like triggers or stressful for them, and we can, when we're like setting it up, we're using up the table, and we know we can
Yeah.
like already narrate that to put
Yeah.
them at ease before we know that starts putting their energy up to the point where they're going to need to explode into a disagreement of sorts, or like bring that negative energy to it, because then they can see right, oh yeah, they're doing it for this reason. It's not to piss me off, or like they have a need for this, etc. Like that understanding, and we can do that I messaging, narrating along the way beforehand too, because
Yeah.
as we learn more about each other, well, this will be an important thing to mention to somebody ahead of time, maybe before they see it or as they're seeing it, or something like that, so that we can even just like share our lives together in ways that like that iMessage can help them feel seen and
Yeah.
heard, because like why else would they say
Absolutely.
that?
Right. I love that.
What about, okay, so like, what about if you have a dysregulated partner and they just come into the room like, things need to change around here. Why we need to do more things as a family. Why are they always on their screens, etc.? Like, what is the first step of validating that person to like lower this energy?
I don't know. I mean, I think I would just be like, oh my gosh, like tell me more. Like what's happening? I can see that you're just so upset about it. Has something specific happened? And maybe they'll be like, no, it's just everything. It's just been all week. All I've seen is this and blah, blah, blah. And just say, just that sounds so hard. And it sounds like, gosh, I miss you and tell me more. It's been a really tough week. Maybe we can give some context too, because sometimes that can help. Like, I know how hard you've been working this week. I know that the lawnmower broke and then we had this water leak. And I know these things have been happening. Like it has felt like we've been super disconnected as a family. Like we can validate that piece because like pull out that piece of like, okay, they're wanting the family to get together. They're feeling disconnected because so often these kind of things are coming from a feeling of being disconnected. And so we can really validate like you're just feeling really disconnected from us. And I mean, gosh, we haven't seen you all week or whatever it is. You'll see that it's like, yes, and I don't, gosh, it's just been this and that, and you're off doing this with that, but you'll see just a slight change in energy because we're not fighting them on it. We're not saying, well, where have you been? Or gosh, what have you been doing? Whatever it is. So I think that's kind of where I start is just like, whoa, gosh, tell me more. I want to understand. That sounds really hard. I know we haven't seen you much, or we're feeling disconnected, or I would love for us to do more things as a family because even that, so even we can say, I would love for us to do more things as a family, doesn't mean we're going to be turning off all the computers or we're going to never do whatever the things else that they came on the tirade. I would always love for us to do more things as a family, like find that little piece that's like, yes. And then I think we can get to the solution of that later. We have to bring the energy down so that we can be creative in that moment.
Yeah, and I find too, like especially when they're coming with the messages of like the family perspective, that so often is about disconnection, or they're
Yeah.
not feeling part of the family, like
Mm-hmm.
they're feeling disconnected in some way. So yes, validating that piece and something that have found to be really useful, like, oh, what does the day look like for you? What would a great day look like for you? Like a great moment. And that helps them feel seen and heard when you're open to hearing, because that's we were talking about before, right? Getting to the root, peeling back the layers, finding the common ground. Because like you said, yeah, I love, hanging out together and spending time together. And when I can like ask questions with curiosity and love, to let them explain how they're seeing things, that's a common ground we can meet at. And then, when the energy is clearer, like, and we feel connected in that moment, like you said, it doesn't mean that we have to stop everything else that we're doing, because I just, want to be able to like hang out with child ABC, like whatever, and do things together. And but then that's when you can start like, oh, you guys love, maybe it's a board game, and like, because then we can bring our experience as to the things that we
Mm-hmm.
already know they do enjoy together. Maybe there is a show or a movie that they enjoy, like, because when they start to express what connection looks like or feels like to them, then they have opened themselves up to, because so often the answer to that is not, well, 8 o'clock, I want them to come out and ride a bike with me. And then when we get back, we're going to go get our gloves and we're going to throw a ball. It's more like, I just want to do stuff with them.
Right.
I want them to enjoy the stuff that we do together. I don't want to feel like they're trying to get it done and get away from me, like those pieces. So that's where you can move to conversations about, what do you guys like doing together? And they can realize, like, when the screens don't become part of the conversation at that point, it's like about connecting,
Right.
then it can come up. There is this show that you guys love, or this YouTube channel, or this video game. And then that helps them, and you can help them find a way to that. And also some of the other things too. But the thing is, what you can help them with is recognizing that they do want something that both people enjoy doing, that it doesn't have to look like just their vision. I wish I had a child that love to go ride bikes with me. Like, and
Yeah.
I know you love doing that. You enjoy doing that. Do that, so that you're a happy person and then you find the things that you enjoy doing with this child and with this child. And then there's this thing, like for us, it was if we were feeling a little disconnected, having a pizza night and Mario Party where we like all came together. It wasn't about the video game. It was about the connection. It was about hanging around together. And the frustration doesn't need to be part of the conversation per se. It's not like no screens forever. It's like you get to the root for them. It's like, I want to connect. I don't want to, walk into a room and feel like forever. I never get to tell you because when we're frustrated, the
Yeah.
always and the nevers always come
Yeah.
up. Those are the clues when you hear those kind of words. Okay, like let's just we're not even having that
Right.
actual conversation right now. We're validating, we're peeling back, we're getting down to what is the root of that always and never. And when they can feel seen and heard around that root, then they can be more open to all the possibilities of meeting it. And that those always nevers may well be beautiful maybes, sometimes beautiful sometimes in meeting that root challenge, right?
Yeah. Right. And getting to the needs underneath, like it's just kind of this conversation journey to go on together. But I feel like, right, that first step is not making their feelings wrong, not making their emotions wrong. Because, when people come into a conversation with that kind of energy, they're expecting a fight. That's kind of what they're coming in for. And so if we don't fight back, if it's like, it makes sense that you're upset. It makes sense that you're feeling disconnected. Like your feelings are valid. And let's talk about, what's going on for you. I think in many cases, people coming in with that energy would appreciate just being able to talk about how overwhelming things are for them in general at that time. Like just tell me about what's stressing you out because I can tell, that something's going on. So right, like just the power of that, of us not getting our defenses up and just being able to validate and that it's okay. Like it's okay to be upset about things. It's okay to feel disconnected. And yeah, like figuring out those underlying needs and how to meet them all together. And with kids and connection, if you really can get to that, like I'm just feeling disconnected, then that opens up like, well, okay, there's a million ways that we could figure out that problem, and if you're willing to do things with the kids that they like to do, you're going to get that connection back. And so if we have the vision of they never want to do this thing I want to do with them, if I have that conversation and realize what I really want is to feel connected, I really want to have fun with them, then maybe I could go, okay, it's a little disappointing that they are not into this thing that I'm into, but what if I can try out what they're interested in and then we can connect, in a way that feels really good to them. And yeah, then you build that relationship and kind of add up those good experiences together.
Yeah, I know you want to go to very quickly. For me that when we got to those conversations, Erica, it helped. I was helping them sort their priorities. Like you love this thing and you want to connect with your kids. Those can be two separate things. Like I said,
Yeah.
you can go off and go mountain biking or, whatever it is that you love to do. And you can if connecting with your kids is the priority, find something that you both enjoy doing together. You don't need to kill two birds with one stone, whatever metaphor you want to use. They don't have to go together so that you can efficiently do the thing you love and connect with your child. I mean, yes, there's some disappointment, and we have this vision. We wish we all loved doing these things and we could all do this together. But yeah, that's our personal journey, and that's what we can help them like tease apart when we get to how we meet our needs. Thank you.
Right. Okay. A few things. So then that reminded me, I think the paradigm shift is instead of we're a family doing all the things, we're an outdoor family, we're a musical family. what if the culture of the family is we're a family that supports each other in doing the things that we love? Because that actually feels good. I think so often with adults that have maybe not been heard when they were younger, they kind of want to, this is my time, like we're going to do the things I want to do. But it's like, oh my gosh, we can all do the things that we want to do and we can support each other and feel connected in that. So I think that's kind of an interesting paradigm shift. But what I wanted to say before that was just a quick reminder, because we talk about this with kids, it's the big language piece. So when they come at you with that big language, everything's going to hell in a handbasket. This is the worst. This is this, they're never going to do anything. They're never going to amount to nothing. Oh my goodness. Recognize that is just big language for emotions inside. And like you said, Erika, it's probably so much about the overwhelm they're experiencing from something going on in their life. Maybe there's other things in all of our lives or in the family's life that's really feeling hard. But just like with the kids, just let that big language slide over and go, wow, this person is upset and I want to understand, and when we can change that to just not focus on the words, because that's kind of what you were saying too, Pam, that reminded me, like when we focus on the words, we actually aren't getting at what the needs are necessarily because, taking the iPads away because that was the words isn't going to connect them, so if the need is connection, we've actually focused on the words and probably made it worse, and so just letting the words slide over to really hear and validate and kind of bring that energy down gets us to that underlying need. Okay. I know we've done a lot here.
I really love that. Right, so.
Yes, it's beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you enjoyed our conversation, our longer conversation this week, and maybe even picked up a nugget or two for navigating disagreements with your partner and more generally with anyone in your life that you love. And if you would like to dive deeper, we do have a course called Navigating Conflict, which is designed to help you gain a better understanding of how our personalities, our life experiences, and how we're feeling in the moment can contribute significantly to the ways in which conflicts arise and unfold. It includes 6 lessons, each of which includes exercises to help you more deeply process the topic and what it looks like for you. Because all together now, we are all different people. We encourage you to spend time with these exercises so that you can move beyond like that, the intellectual understanding of these tools, the tools that we talked about, and get a feel for what they look like for you in practice. So to pick up our Navigating Conflict course, just follow the link in the show notes or go to livingjoyfullyshop.com and click on courses in the menu. Wishing everyone a wonderful day. Thanks, Anna. Thanks, Erika.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.